All right, y'all, welcome to the show. Got a great one for you today. So, Fox News is at the point where they're pretty much calling for war with China. So that's lovely. That's a beautiful, beautiful thing. We'll talk about that. We also have a new poll came out on Donald Trump. Historic lows and historic highs at the exact same time. Politics has never been crazier, if you ask me. And then later on in the show, we have Steve Bannon goes to war with Elon Musk. And there's a Blaze TV host who, I mean, God, I would not like to see this guy's search history. I don't want to know what he's typing into his internet browser. But he is now claiming that sex is uncool. And he seems to think a lot about the younger generation having sex. Anyway, we'll save it. Just a perverted weirdo who will dive into his awkward comments. All right, so without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into it. By the way, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, all that fun stuff. You guys know the deal. Support the show on Patreon, link below. You could always listen to the full show on Spotify if you want to listen to the audio version of the podcast as opposed to going video for video. All right, so here we go. Mark Levin is the pseudo-intellectual of Fox News. He's got the nasally, weaselly voice. He sounds kind of like Ted Cruz, but this is supposed to be, I'm the serious man over at Fox News. That's the vibe he gives off. And you're going to see here, he does this rant on Hannity's show, and this is getting terrifying. So you look at what's going on with Russia and Ukraine, you look at what's going on with China, potentially them in Taiwan, fingers crossed on that one, but the signs are there that perhaps won't be too good in the future. You take a look at that, and it's a yikesy moment, to say the least. Well, Fox is going to go ahead and add fuel to the fire with this absolutely ludicrous and psychotic rant. Watch this.
Brazil now is with China. That's in our own hemisphere. We used to have something called the Monroe Doctrine. Let me read you a list, Sean. Invasion of foreigners, severe economic troubles, division of the empire stretched too thin, government corruption and political instability, loss of traditional values, weakening of the legions, the military. That is what combined to destroy the Roman Empire.
I love the weakening of the military point because it's like, are we looking at the same budget? We still spend more on our military than the next 10 biggest countries combined. And he's like, bro, our military's getting weak. Now, what he means by that is, they've gone woke, bro. They, allow gay people to exist in the military now, so everything's going downhill. These guys are so out of touch, it's embarrassing.
Empire lasts 1,000 years. We're not even close to 1,000 years. Every one of those 7 or 8 issues is something we are confronting today. And Rome fell in 476 CE of its own weight. We have something going on in this country that we've never had before. We have a Marxist revolution that is destroying us from within.
We have a Marxist revolution that's destroying us from within. A Marxist revolution? Bruh. The best we have in this country is a Bernie Sanders movement which was pushing for mild social democracy. We just want everybody to have healthcare, man. That's it. Healthcare, higher wages, end the corruption. Ironically, he cites the corruption as evidence of the empire in decline. But, the people who are fighting the corruption are the same people you just smeared. We got a Marxist revolution coming. Or Marxist revolution taking over this country. Look, I run in lefty circles. Will I'll tell you, ain't no revolution here right now. We wish, right? I wish that the left actually had power and got universal health care and universal education and eliminated student loan debt and gave everybody higher wages and all the amazing, beautiful things that we talk about all the time. But it isn't happening, right? So, again, just totally, for once, I would like to get inside one of these people's minds and just, see the world from their point of view. Because it appears to me like they just make stuff up, just utterly made up.
Enemy gathers abroad. And there is an axis of powers against us right now. It's China, Russia, Iran, and North Korea. This is no joke. China hasn't...
Okay, so he's just doing the axis of evil speech from George W. Bush. You know, whatever it was, 2001, 2003, David Frum wrote the speech. Just like listing out all of the official state enemy baddies and using their existence to justify feeding the military-industrial complex trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars. He's just recycling that same neocon imperialist garbage.
The biggest navy on the face of the earth, military islands in the South China Sea, over 27 bases of different kinds in our hemisphere, a deep water naval base in Somalia where my great uncle fought on Guadalcanal.
I don't know if I would admit that if I were you. He brought up 27 Chinese military bases. Hey, Mark, how many do we have? How many do we have near them? I'm curious. 800? 900? Something in that ballpark, right? But he cites their numbers and doesn't say a word about our numbers. Look, I'm telling you, man, this is that imperialist brain rot where he thinks the U.S. is above the law, right? Like, he thinks we can do no wrong and we're the good guys by definition. So when we do torture, when we do illegal and offensive invasions, it's okay because we mean well. Mark Levin is on the team, therefore Mark Levin, good guy, so whatever we do is okay. This is the thought process, man, but it's going to take an even darker turn. Wait.
You have China with a base on the western coast of Africa facing us, killer satellites, nuclear missiles. You think they're building all that to defeat Taiwan? They're building all that to defeat us. They're not going to be satisfied with Taiwan. They're in battles now with the Philippines and Japan, even Vietnam. Australia's being threatened. Unless you're Helen Keller, you can't see this and hear what's going on here. This is a big damn deal. And let me tell you something that viewers of this audience and others may not want to hear. We need to prepare for war against China. I don't mean go to war. I don't mean initiate a war. But they are preparing for war. We are completely unprepared as a nation psychologically. We are completely unprepared economically and immigration-wise.
Are you going to go fight that war, Mark? Are you going to go fight that war? He says, we're completely unprepared for war. We're unprepared psychologically. We're unprepared economically. So who do you want to prep psychologically? Who's going to go fight that war? Are you going to be on the front lines with a gun, tough guy? No, you want to send other people's kids to go fight and die. You want poor, working class American men and women to go be cannon fodder on the front line. That's what you want. Now you're going to say, I'm going to let this play a little longer, but you can see here he does the, I'm not saying go to war, but they want to go to war, so we got to be ready to go to war. We should go to war. But I'm not saying go to war, but we should go to war. Enough.
Our border, our military is not prepared in the sense that they're pushing this woke ideology. Our military budgets do not reflect the threats that we are facing in the world around us. I want to say it again so the backbenchers regurgitate it. We must prepare for war against China, not because we want war, not because we're going to cause war, but because they want war.
I don't know, man. It seems like you want war too. It seems like you kind of want war too. That's really not too much of a stretch to make that point, now is it? Again, we have 800, 900 military bases around the world. We spent $7 trillion on the war in Iraq, $2 trillion on the war in Afghanistan. We have the military-industrial complex where one of the biggest businesses in this country is Raytheon, Boeing, Halliburton, Honeywell. We got all these defense contractors. There are defense contractor jobs in every single state in the United States of America. It is a major money industry. So go back and watch Eisenhower's military-industrial complex speech. He warns about what can happen if war is a business. And that's where we're at right now. And so here he is salivating over the idea of World War III. By the way, there is no just war with China. That's not a thing. That's the end of the world. If there's a war between the United States and China, that's how that ends. So to talk about it in this casual way, look, if you were really concerned about this and you were a serious person, you would argue for negotiation and diplomacy and conversation and open dialogue and try to, find some way to navigate forward in a perilous time. The fact of the matter is, we've had a unipolar world ever since the end of World War II. And what that means, that's just a fancy way of saying the United States has been the world's sole superpower for a very, very long time. And now we're kind of entering a new era where it's going to be a multipolar world because we've clearly lost our stranglehold on the global economy. We've put people in line, and now they're stepping out of line. And evidence of that is the Belt and Road Initiative, where China is cutting all these economic deals with these developing countries. Evidence of that is Brazil now entering into a pact with China. One of our top allies, Saudi Arabia, has now stabbed us in the back to make a deal with China and Russia. There's a conversation now about the dollar no longer being the world reserve currency. Look, people are moving on, right? Countries are moving on. Now, why? Why have they gotten to a point where they're like, well, let's kind of divorce ourselves a little bit from the United States of America? The answer is simple. We violate every single rule and law under the sun, and we are immensely punitive with everybody else. But when it comes to us and our closest allies, anything goes. I mean, that's the bottom line, right? Like, we have used the fact that the US dollar is the world reserve currency. We've used that fact to sanction the hell out of everybody who's an official enemy nation, whether it be Iran or North Korea. We have too much power, too much control, too much authority over other nations. We crack down on other countries when they do, illegal wars and violate human rights. We'll crack down on them. But when we're guilty of the same things, we give ourselves a pass. Look at how we treat Israel, for example. They're on the good team, so they get away with whatever they want to. But look at how we treat Iran. It's quite the opposite, right? So there hasn't been an actual set of rules. International law is not applied objectively. The way we approach sanctions is not applied objectively. So basically, this is a long way of saying we've been incredibly willy-nilly with how we were the world's sole superpower, and there are consequences to that. People have had enough. They've had enough, and they're moving in a different direction. And think about it. If you're some developing country and China comes along and says, basically, hey, we're going to build out all your infrastructure for you, and you're going to be part of the Belt and Road Initiative, and then we're going to make some sort of economic deals where, yes, China's going to end up exploiting and taking some natural resources from these places, etc. That's the offer on the table from China. The offer on the table from the U.S. is what? Maybe we'll invade you and put in a puppet dictator. Like, at least with China, you get the infrastructure development, right? So, of course, all these countries are now gravitating towards China. So what he's saying is not wrong. There is a rise of China, right? Like, there is a rise of China, and there's a decline among the United States of America. But his reasoning is 100% wrong, and he's calling for war to try to prevent it, right? Call for war to try to prevent the rise of China. And it's just embarrassing. It's hawkish, and it would be the end of the world as we know it. I mean, it's suicide pact stuff, what he's talking about here. So, look, if you want the United States to remain the world's sole superpower or to become viewed more seriously by the global community, there are very simple ways to do it. We would have to economically develop other nations, have better deals for them, apply the law, international law more objectively, subject ourselves to the same thing. It would be stuff like that, which are things we would never in a million years ever consider. We'd much rather just threaten anybody with our giant military if they start to get a little bit too much power, and that's exactly where we are right now. So I know this segment became a little wonky, but the fact of the matter is, this is psycho stuff here from Mark Levin, and it sounds to me like he does want war with China. It's amazing that to say that so flippantly and so glibly is terrifying. And there's so many Republicans who are when it comes to the Russia and Ukraine war, they're like, oh my God, we need to find a way out of this and negotiate. And it's cool, yeah, I agree with that. But then in the next breath, they're like, and we should do a war with China. Wait, what? Why wouldn't the same negotiation thing apply there? Why wouldn't you also want to find a way out of war with China? It's you understand that we should find a way out of Russia, Ukraine, but we shouldn't find a way out of war with... what are you talking about? It's all the Republicans who pretend like they're non-interventionists, then in the next breath, they're like, We should invade Mexico. What? No. Let's stop with the insane foreign policy. Let's stop invading places willy-nilly. We can act like a serious country. We just have to choose to and get rid of the corrupting influence of the military-industrial complex. But that's easier said than done. Anyway, Mark Levin's a psychopath. I think you all see that very clearly. Hey, y'all, do me a favor and like and subscribe. It helps out big time in the algorithm. Click the bell as well for notifications when videos drop. And watch that video on screen right now. You know you want to.